Some of you may have attended our media training recently, and I remember Chimamwale from the Daily Mail saying Mr. Akufuna insists on issuing press releases using hard copies, and he always brings them at 17 hours, if not 18 hours, when we are almost past our deadlines. And my reaction to that was that, yes, we have normally used hard copies of press releases, and we've distributed them to the media. But going forward, we will change our approach in terms of engaging the media. We will now have media briefings in this format. And depending on the issues, we are likely to have them every week. So please expect invitations from the Commission on a weekly basis, just to update you of where we are in terms of the electoral process. This morning, the focus will be on the rising levels of violence and intimidation by some political players. I will read out the statement that we have prepared, and this statement will be given to you. And then later on, I'll also give you a brief on the Commission's engagement with the heads of public media institutions, which we had yesterday. And then later on, we can, if there will be need for questions, we can interact on that. So the statement is as follows. The Electoral Commission of Zambia has noted with dismay the rising levels of violence and intolerance during the campaign period. The Commission would therefore like to strongly condemn the violence and intolerance that have characterized political party campaigns in the run-up to the 2016 general elections and referendum. The Commission is compelled to warn political parties and candidates participating in the 2016 general elections and referendum to desist from acts of violence, failure to which it will suspend all political party campaigns and disqualify the political parties perpetrating violence from the elections. Section 28 of the Electoral Process Act, number 35 of 2016, empowers the Commission to suspend campaigns if it considers it necessary for a credible election. And Section 110 of the said Act empowers the Commission to disqualify a political party or candidate in breach of the Electoral Code of Conduct. All political parties are expected to ensure that their candidates, cadres, and supporters abide by the Code of Conduct. It is unacceptable that at this stage of our democracy, we should have blatant disregard of the Code of Conduct, as has been exhibited by some political party supporters. The Commission therefore wishes to reiterate that it is the responsibility of all political parties participating in elections to restrain their members and cadres from provoking their opponents and inciting violence. It is also the responsibility of the Zambia Police Service to ensure that perpetrators of violence and anyone caught abrogating the Electoral Code of Conduct is dealt with firmly without fear or favor. Leaders of all political parties have a greater responsibility to lead by example in promoting tolerance and peace. In conclusion, it is the hope of the Commission that there will be an improvement in the electoral environment forthwith. That is our statement, and we will give you copies of this statement on the rising levels of violence and indeed intolerance. Now, before I give you the floor, I thought I should just give you an update in terms of what the Commission has been up to in terms of engaging with public media. Yesterday, the Commission met heads of public media here at the Electoral Commission of Zambia. In attendance were representing the Minister of Information, Mr. Chipampe, the Director for Press. There was the Managing Editor for the Times of Zambia, Mr. Beston Ngonga, was it Ngonga? Then there was Mr. Mbewe from Zambia Daily Mail, Mr. Nebat Mbewe. And then we also had the Director of Zanis, Mr. Patrick Lungu, and the Director General of Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. Mwanza. So the meeting really was to update, or rather to consult with media heads in terms of coverage of elections and the need for balance and indeed fair play to all candidates. So the chairperson chaired the meeting, and at this meeting he spelled out the role of the media during political party campaigns, and he reminded the heads of media on the provisions of the Code of Conduct and the expectations of the Commission in as far as coverage is concerned. So having briefed them on that, the chairperson went on now to give the media heads an opportunity also to look at what challenges they are facing as public media. And it was agreed that there is need to cover all political parties and candidates that are participating in an election. But they also raised their own issues as public media institutions, the challenges of resources, both material and personnel, the challenges of perceptions, the challenges of harassment of public media journalists, and indeed the hostility by some opposition political parties towards public media persons. And there was also another challenge that was brought out, especially from ZNBC, with regard to fear that is being kind of perpetrated by opposition political parties who always will threaten public media heads and indeed employees to say, when we come into power, we will deal with you, or indeed we will get rid of you. So these were brought to the Commission, and the Commission noted the concerns of the political parties, and the Commission, as a way forward, shared the concerns of public media heads with them, or rather, the Commission committed itself to share the concerns of the public media heads with political parties at our next meeting. And the Commission also would consider a request, this one was from ZNBC, in terms of political parties participating in an election, to increase airtime. Right now, the Code of Conduct provides for 30 minutes airtime to be accorded to each political party, but ZNBC felt otherwise. So the Commission will consider their request to see the feasibility of increasing airtime. And the Commission also noted the insecurity of staff in public media, given the threats, and also even the possible effect on reportage, because now reporters use self-censorship to report. And it was also suggested that perhaps ZNBC, since they had already initiated a move to engage political parties, they should also move on to speak to donors and cooperating partners, so that the donors and cooperating partners understand the fears of these those journalists in the public media. And generally, on the whole, from a commission point of view, it was felt that we should continue with the dialogue with stakeholders, the media, and indeed all others. So that is what was discussed at yesterday's meeting with heads of public media. And it is not the end of the interactions. We definitely will continue with interacting with the stakeholders. And for now, perhaps I can pause there unless you have comments or questions.